think the staff was very knowledgeable, and when you didn't know the answer, you said you didn't know the answer, which is what the regular staff sometimes has to do. And the council is always respectful when somebody says they don't know the answer, because the last thing they want is the wrong answer or for someone to be guessing. And I thought the questions that you had were great. I mean, the things about trade-offs in the budget, and I'm sure the council members here will talk about the sort of issues that they're thinking about when they're thinking about these trolley issues. I must say the city manager didn't do as much as maybe the regular city manager might have done in a meeting, but you kicked off the presentation well, and the city attorney spoke as well, which was good, because sometimes Mr. Wadden doesn't actually say much at a meeting. So why don't we see if anybody else has feedback, and I might start picking on one of our council members here. Jim?
Jim?
Richard?
Great. Jim,
Richard, would you like to start?
Are we doing fantasy or are we reality when you do this simulation? Do you want a real topic? Are you saying real facts? Or
Yes, no, we want real
Start with the
feedback.
first thing, the Measure R that LA County only passed. It's $360,000 that we're going to get projected for the year. We're receiving money now, Rich, aren't we? So LA County's paying 0.25% more in sales tax than the other county in California because we passed it. But that money is attributed, only spent on transportation projects, period. So that number's wrong to start with. But going forward, everything else is right on, except presentation-wise, Stephanie brought it up. When staff presents, they would have said in real life, we had a try in the past. That was never mentioned. Second, the environmental impact has to be right up front. Who, when, where, why, right? The four basic who, what, why, and where. Environmental should be number one, number two, and you're right next to cost. Here's what the advantage is. Cars off the streets. Yes, it goes to MBMS, not Miracosta. We take cars off every day, reduce emissions, that's our goal. We don't want to tie in the green line, which may never happen in the future. We want to stay inside city limits. That's the idea. Take cars off our streets, not reduce Redondo's congestion. It's Manhattan Beach idea. That's the whole goal. And yes, we do charge for out of the area residents, out of the city residents. It's free to NB residents, and then charging that point forward. But the trade-offs you talked about, really the idea that would cost us more, and that may be something we'll look at and say, maybe street sweeping, something else is impacted by this. We'll have to wait and see. We're not sure yet. We don't know what grant money or state money's out there to cover that hole between 360 and I think your cost was 420 or 380. We don't know yet. And the consultant in real life would have spoken right behind staff. That's what would happen. If you had more time, you would have had both together, and when the public would have seen both items, one from staff, the consultant right behind them, you could ask the consultant directly, can you go 2 years, can you go 1 year, you can go 3 years, but state budget requirements require you to get grant money 2 years of actual operating history. And you can't apply for a grant until we see 2 years of ridership and actual operation. First things I saw. Besides that, it's good. Oh, and Andrew, for me, speak up more.
All right, well, that's great feedback about the realities here. And I think the cost estimates, I mean, I think probably if you'd had a little bit more in the presentation on the cost, and also think what Councilmember Montgomery is pointing out is just the premise of this. Why is the trolley here? I think the staff maybe could have spent a teeny bit more time in the presentation just talking about why a trolley in Manhattan Beach and what were the advantages to it. But I mean, again, the staff report was quick and you had to cover a lot of ground, so it was a good job. Councilmember Aldinger. I guess I'm supposed to call you former Councilmember Aldinger.
Former something, yeah.
Formerly known as.
Excellent job, and I was very impressed. It was almost like a council meeting, and the staff did a great job. Mayor, council members all did a great job. Everybody played their part really well. City attorney didn't say much. City manager didn't say much. That's the right role. I mean, those are but a couple just process things. One of the things that we found out that I noticed that if the council asks some questions to start with and has a discussion with staff, which you guys didn't really do, you went right into public comment right away. If there's some discussion with the staff before you do the public comment, then the public has a chance to kind of get up and discuss more what you're talking about, as opposed to just what the staff has written about. So and I think they kind of appreciate having some insight. Certainly you don't want to go all the way and take a vote, because then that kind of obviates the need for the public input, but that's one thing I noticed that you might want to do. Let's see. well researched, everything was, like Sam said, was good job, congratulations.
All right, great. Thank you for that feedback as well. Do other members of the audience have things that they'd like to share on this simulation? I thought one of the really interesting things also here was the fact that you were knowledgeable about the things that you were trading off possibly. I mean, the mention of the dial-a-ride point I thought was a really important one. Dial-a-ride has been talked about in front of the City Council for a number of times in the last couple of years, and there's some sensitivity there. And so I think you did, the council here did a really good job of mentioning dial-a-ride and what the impact might be. I also think that you all were very knowledgeable about things that the city has been very cognizant of being careful about, which is the environmental impacts, the things that we do in the city. And I thought on the trolley you brought in at least some analysis of that environmental impact. And you brought up a point I hadn't even thought about, which is the impact to revenues, because taxi cabs and others might be used less. So do others have comments? We'd like to get a couple more people to provide comments. Yay, good.
I just thought it was an amazing job. You guys just did an outstanding job. Great comments from everyone. It was right on target there in terms of suggestions and everything. I thought the council was great. I've done this, a few years now, and each year it gets better. I mean, the leadership class just produces a stronger class each year, and the process is even better. I'm not sure what I can criticize. I mean, I think at the very beginning, I felt the why needed a little bit more emphasis, and I think that was covered in tonight's comments. And then the other thing is that there was a comment from the public, and there was some criticism over the route, the proposed route, and no one really picked that up in their comments or provided some response. So you tabled the item, which was appropriate. You might also say ask staff for some response or comment to why the route was established and why not consider what was suggested.
We just ignore the public.
I think it's really important to acknowledge the public somehow. Particularly, that's the purpose of these meetings, is to be sure to acknowledge them and to know when you do that. Sometimes they'll be acknowledged too early, and it will create a debate at the podium, and you don't want that. You don't want that to take over the meeting. So I thought, though, at some point after he sat down and he did, that the council members might bring up the point and have it addressed.
All right, good. Thank you, Acting City Manager Thompson.
Actually, interim city manager.
Oh, I'm sorry, Interim City Manager. Gosh, I'm not keeping up with the press release here, I guess. All right, Interim City Manager.